Good afternoon and welcome to the latest Canvas GFX webinar. My name's Mike Hibbard, I'm VP of Product at Canvas, and today's topic is the future-proofing of frontline knowledge transfer in manufacturing. Leading the discussion today is Canvas GFX CEO Patricia Hume, who's fresh from the National Association of Manufacturers board meeting. And we're delighted to welcome our expert speaker, Ward Lawrence, who's the Manufacturing Partner Strategy Lead for Microsoft. Ward, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I'll hand over to Pat now to begin what promises to be a fascinating discussion. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. And Ward, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation. We're going to make this fun, casual, just talk a little bit about what's going on. So as Mike said, we're here to talk about future proofing of knowledge transfer in manufacturing. That's a mouthful. I think what we're talking about here is how do we really get the knowledge, the information that the frontline worker needs to do their job and do it right the first time, right? There's a lot of digital transformation dialogue going on across the sector, but I kind of feel like the documentation aspect of knowledge transfer is the last thing that people talk about. Yet on the floor, KPIs like quality, scrap, right, yield rates, non-value added rework, these are all real issues. They're real KPIs. So I'm just curious, is this something that you would agree with, that we've got a bit of a challenge here with respect to how we enable and transfer knowledge to frontline worker?
Definitely. And, all those things that you talked about, all of that translates to the bottom line for manufacturers. And obviously, these guys are running pretty thin profit margins. So in today's economic environment with component costs at 40-year highs, anything that you can do to make workers more productive and help with that knowledge transfer really, really helps out. I mean, basically with Microsoft, every conversation we have with a customer is about how to save money or improve efficiency in a resource-constrained industry. So definitely resonates.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess we wouldn't be talking about this if status quo was perfect, right? And
Yeah.
so, there are definitely challenges. So what are some of the challenges that you guys are seeing here today?
I think content quality and format are one of the biggest issues out there. Almost all content is in hard copy, like PDF or Word docs, and the formats just aren't designed for purpose. They have flat graphics, they are time consuming to create, they're hard to update, and that really means that things are soon outdated or inaccurate. The next thing is we talk a little bit about a work constrained environment. The loss of worker expertise in an aging workforce is getting to be a bigger and bigger problem. It's their knowledge is almost never captured in that old form of documentation. And then lastly, in order to fill that skill gap that's coming up, you've got to attract a new generation of workers, and those are digital natives, and they learn in a different way.
Yeah, they sure do. And I think, as Mike indicated, I'm coming out of the National Association of Manufacturers board meeting, and we talked a lot about the workforce challenge or the workforce crisis, right? And, you mentioned it. The baby boomers are leaving. The next generation of worker is coming in. They learn differently, right? They grew up differently. They are digital natives, right? And, it's interesting because we've done some surveys to try to understand, what are manufacturers looking for? What problems are they seeing, right? And I think one of the key things we hear is that quality issues happen, lack of productivity, lack of efficiency because documentation is outdated, right? And that's, certainly a challenge as we know. But I lean into this whole workforce issue, right? And, cost of recruitment, retention, getting people trained to do the job is one thing, right? And we find that manufacturers use traditional tools like PowerPoint to do that. Yeah. And it's a great tool for that. But when you go on the manufacturing floor and you're handed a printed piece of paper that's text dense, I think it's an issue and a real issue. So, what is it going to take for people to change and eradicate these challenges.
Yeah. You're right that it has been super difficult to recruit that younger generation into the factories. That we see over 1 million jobs in the U.S. alone that are vacant right now, and that format and delivery of that content matters in a big way. And we get that out of different sources. We hear that from we do a lot of our own research, and specifically with the younger generation, that they want to learn in a new way. So the more you can incorporate technology into their day-to-day experience, it's even that much better. Ivan is just looking at the Ford website, and they've got in their what they call their work-life balance initiative that almost all workers were saying that they were expecting AI to help them in some way, and that a lot of them would actually even be looking at their next job if they can't incorporate AI to make their jobs better and learn things in a new way and get content in a new way, then that will determine where they go, where they work. So, they do want to see technology coming their way. They're used to consuming information from a mobile device. So they don't want to go to that 100-page document. They don't want to search for an answer through a manual. They want the information to come to them in a much easier format. And that's why Microsoft has invested so much in the co-pilots. It's
Yep.
not about replacing humans with robots. It's about helping those humans be more productive and get the answers they need in the format they prefer. Technology is a key piece of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So we heard 3 challenges: content format, right? Worker expertise, training, and then this new worker generation. So these are pretty serious challenges, right? With serious impacts on the business, and they need to be addressed. So I'd like to dig into how that might look so we can take each of the challenges you've raised in turn. So content format and quality is a big one. And it's important both in terms of how effectively it transfers knowledge, but also how easily it is to correct, update, and maintain it, right? It's a provocative observation we're going to have, but often instructional content that's created in Word or PowerPoint or Excel may not be the format and manner in which this new generation wants to, consume their documents. I'm a huge user of Microsoft Office productivity tools. Every day of my life, I use them. Yeah. And I know that, they're used pervasively across, the globe for all sorts of things, but they're not designed for the purpose of giving the frontline worker, right, the tools that they need to interact, right, take a look, evaluate, interrogate the information they need to do the job right the first time, right? And the fact that more and more organizations are moving to model-based environments, that is a single source of truth that permeates everything that they do. That thread, that digital thread, right? That associative nature of the document to the data, very important.
It is. And, far be it for the Microsoft guy to not talk about using Office products absolutely everywhere. But look, you're right. They have their place, and they have their place for guys like me that sit behind a computer, but work instructions on the factory floor is not it. They want to see cutting edge viewing experiences that are visual first rather than text first. And they want to be able to interact with it. They want to be able to move around a 3D picture to see it from all angles instead of just a flat view of an illustration or a photograph.
Yeah.
And the technology exists and is more widely available now. Microsoft had been going down a path of a really heavy approach with HoloLens, because you had this big device that was expensive sitting on your head, and it was fully functional. But we're moving away from that product because with this new generation, they want to be able to see things on a tablet or a phone. It just makes it a lot more accessible, and it makes it more accessible to everyone on the floor instead of having to share who's using the HoloLens right now.
Yeah, and we see that, right? We see a divestment, if you would, in that approach to consumption, right? That's a consumption vehicle, yeah?
Yeah.
One thing we really lean into here at Canvas is that, knowledge is bidirectional, right? Knowledge begets knowledge. And I think historically, and even today in manufacturing, the engineer has the power, they have the knowledge, they're the ones that are designing and engineering and ideating on that next thing the company is going to design, manufacture, and sell. Yeah. And getting that knowledge into the hand of the frontline worker, we've talked about it, right? There are new ways, there's innovative ways, there's interactive ways, but we're firm believers that the frontline worker has a tremendous amount of knowledge to share back, right? And it's got to be a two-way street. And I have a firm belief that if we can respect the knowledge that these people have to share, retention, morale, quality of work, quality of life improves, right? So I'm just curious, how important do you think it is for manufacturers to be able to capture that knowledge in the frontline worker and sort of feed it back through that digital thread, creating this digital loop, right? And getting that information, that data into the hands of the right people so it can be actionable.
Yeah, it's really important. It's why most of our customers are now looking for frontline worker solutions that have direct integration into whatever product lifecycle management system they're using. They want that solution that can be directly fed from spec changes from engineering to updating the worker instructions for assembly. And it allows manufacturers to offer a lot more variety in their products while not increasing the time to market or the cost of assembly through more worker training or potential scrap and rework. So trying to use a paper-based system that's got static documentation system like Word or PowerPoint, it doesn't cut it. So that's why the integrations, that when you look at your product and the integrations you have with a PLM company like Eris, it's really important.
Yeah, thanks for that. We do see a lot of requests from our customers to be able to integrate at the front end, which is, of course, your PLM, your PDM, right? Maybe even your digital twin, to be able to bring that data down. We've also heard an awful lot about that integration at the MES level or the QMS level, right? The place where the frontline worker is accessing that content. And, so for us, I think we were fortunate to be able to hear from the enterprise customers as we were building Canvas and Vision, and started to realize that, out of the box, it's a very powerful tool, but middleware on steroids is kind of what the large manufacturers are looking for, because they do need, number one, to preserve massive investment in enterprise software stacks, right? They're resistant to change, right? I mean, if you're building airplanes or you're building tanks or you're building excavators, that's hard. So coming in and saying, hey, try this, that disruption is difficult, right? So being able to integrate into those workflows, we have found is important. So I'll stop the advertisement on Canvas and we can talk about that third issue on human resource. We've talked a lot about it already, but one thing that we do see is the frontline worker wants to work as they play and play as they work, right? They've grown up with mobile devices. They have grown up with video games. They've grown up even in the classrooms, right? Using new tools to learn. So, as we think about that, we talked about it, but I'd like to have you dig in a little bit more on the importance of visual interactive instructions.
Yeah, we've been talking about this already with visual and mobile, that it's so key to the younger generation. And I use my son as an example. He's in college, he's about to move into the workforce. And when he was in high school, he taught himself how to code and play guitar by watching YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So, the digital training guides and virtual experiences are going to help them learn faster. That's what they want. It isn't just about skilling the new hires, but then being able to throw more at them. So, providing different types of instructions or be able to build more customized products or service more types of machines with minimal training beforehand. So, give them the instructions they need at the time they need it, and they can become incredibly productive quickly.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Let me change gears a bit. First and foremost, we're really delighted to be a Microsoft partner. I've been in this industry for a long time, and Microsoft has always been a company that, garners respect, leading edge technology. As a little startup, sometimes you wonder what's it going to be like to partner with these big companies. And all I can say, and I'll say it because it's tattooed on my soul. You guys have been incredible, working with everybody across the organization to help us, right? And help us from a personal perspective, like relationships like you and I have been able to develop, and Simon and I and others, Laurie and I across the organization, but also the benefits you provide, right? And ease of partnering. So I really want to congratulate you and Microsoft on the incredible manner in which we've been able to forge our partnership. We just went live on the Azure Marketplace this
Great.
past week. So super excited about that. And it was amazing because trying to deliver free trials, it's hard. But all the hooks that are in the marketplace, allowed us to leverage all the technology you all built to make it easier for us. And so we want to thank you for that. Moving on to advancing our partnership, we're looking at Microsoft AI, of course, right? We do believe there's a role for Copilot to help generate the content that's needed for the frontline worker. Your technology is so broad and so capable. It's not one thing where you look at, right? We're working on the different models to bring together the best of what we need from an infrastructure perspective to be able to leverage the power of Microsoft AI in the experience of our customers. Yeah. So I'm just curious, talk to me about that. Talk to me about, where you guys are headed, what your thoughts are. And because I'm not the only startup out there that's looking at Microsoft AI to help advance our products. So your thoughts on this, please.
Sure. So, as you rightly pointed out, AI is everything at Microsoft right now. And it's been an interesting transition because when you think about all those outdated documents that we've been talking about, those things are actually pretty handy when it comes into feeding these models, because that's what generative AI is built on. It was the language models. So when you've got those big documents, feed those manuals or standard operating procedures that were from Word or PDFs. You can catalog that stuff and it becomes the basis of what becomes those co-pilots. Now, what's been difficult on that is it's really expensive. When you're using large language models, it can be really expensive to run, and sometimes the compute power, it really isn't available. But the way that we're trying to address that right now is through what we call small language models. And that's where you take specific data sets and then run generative AI on something as small as a laptop. So you don't need that huge computing power anymore. And Microsoft just released our Phi 3 family of these small language models, and we think it's going to make AI really a lot more accessible, especially to manufacturing companies. And whether it's looking at language or whether it's looking at pictures, it's really going to enable you to train these models. And because it's relevant data sets that you're training on, instead of going to the web and looking at a whole bunch of different inferences, you're able to reduce most of the hallucinations. So it's relevant, it's giving you relevant results. So then when you look at co-pilots in this space, you can do troubleshooting, take action with necessary steps very quickly. And you don't have to really know that much about the machine, but it all starts with getting that underlying data fed into these systems, and then you can really make copilots usable really quickly.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Let me ask this question. This is something we talked about at the board meeting this past week. The cost of AI goes beyond the cost of the technology.
Yeah.
It goes to the cost of energy to be able to run AI, goes to the cost of compute power, goes to a lot, right? Now, when we think about the manufacturing sector, which you and I care about very much, what are you seeing with respect to adoption? Are they talking about it? Are they actually doing something? And how do they get started? Like, how do they get started? Because the challenges are many. Yeah. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, AI is truly on everybody's minds. And like we just got a piece of research. We have a company called, we partner with a company called IoT Analytics that does research on really what's on people's minds out there in the manufacturing world. AI was the number one. So everybody is wanting to understand how they can use it. And it really is opening up conversations at every customer for us. Even those that may have decided that they wanted to go with Amazon or Google, they're all coming back. They want to see what we can do with with AI. So, and I think the biggest reason for that is it's fundamental to overcoming those worker shortage challenges we talked about, and it's fundamental to being able to improve operations. So most manufacturers have had access to a lot of data, especially in the factory, for a long time. Just really never had the time or resources to figure out what to do with it. AI can not only be used to more quickly contextualize that data and figure out what it is, but then with all of its inferencing, enable the workers to efficiently troubleshoot and improve operations leveraging that data. And earlier we were speaking about that feedback loop from frontline workers. In a solution like Envision, you can enable voice inputs and have AI translate into text across multiple languages, and then use that to complete the feedback loop in a really, really simple way. So the issues that don't go unlogged, and that will increase collaboration. And as you said before, having that engineering department connection into the frontline worker is super important. And companies see value in that, and they're willing to invest because, again, they need to find ways to increase efficiency and cut cost.
Yeah, for sure, right? And I think you can make great strides with baby steps in AI, because I mean the example of using voice and Envision, right? That's a great use case. And I think what we all need to understand is identify your use case, right? And let's start where we can be successful. Because I think it does return a lot of value very quickly, and it has to be sort of well thought through versus a blanket. We're going to do AI, right? We're going to solve these problems, and this is how we're going to do it. And I think incrementally, the continued value, it's going to just be huge for those that adopt and adopt well. So Ward, I want to thank you for taking the time to be in today's call. I appreciate it. Just a quick summary, I guess, of what we've spoken about. Clearly, manufacturers are facing a challenge with respect to their workforce. Knowledge transfer is not easy. Yeah, at least not with the tools and the processes that they're using today. I think that, the younger generation, as we've discussed, needs new tools and new ways to learn how to do the job, visual, interactive, and clearly AI plays a role today and into the future. So I'm feeling very strongly about what we've built here at Canvas. I appreciate the fact that we have you guys by our side and helping guide us as we embrace the Microsoft AI portfolio and continue to move forward to try to help manufacturers address the challenges today and into the future.
That's great. You know, I think you summarized that well. The only thing that I would add is that AI is an enabling technology in the space, but it really requires a more purpose-built solution to deliver the experience that those new workers want. The tools that enable productivity in the office are just not the same that those are needed for the front line. So leveraging solutions like Canvas truly are a must.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And Ward, thanks for your partnership. And as you know, I'll be in touch real soon. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt.